Hi, this is Christyl Blue. I'm here to do a much shorter video this evening. It's getting late and I've been busy all day getting organized in my office, and it's a Sunday evening, December 5th, 2021, and this is the time period of the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So I wanted to just check the energy, and this is going to be my monthly reading for December, as well as, doing it at the new moon period. But it happens to be a new moon solar eclipse period. So this is extra special in my opinion. You can look at my November 7th post or thereabouts for the new moon energy for November, and then gain a sense of what timelines in the cosmos we are dealing with and the energies involved, because it is challenging to say the least. I was just reflecting earlier today on how, life is never easy, but I had more time. I had more time to explore and think and do things, although I think a lot anyway, but what I'm saying is, I worked full time, was raising my son, was supporting the U.S. military, and going to college part-time for a lot of years. And I was also reading books on the side that I wanted to read that weren't part of my curriculum. I just had a lot. It just seems like there was a lot of time to explore then. And so what I'm going to suggest here is find time to explore. Some of the readings that I'm going to be posting are going to be getting more into that again. I'm going to be posting the next Earth is Magical reading, as well as, let's see, I have, my calendar's up there, but basically I have a list of at least 6 different videos I'm going to be posting throughout December. And I wanted to get one more Earth is Magical post done before the winter solstice. So, during the fall period. So that's what I'm shooting for this week, is to get another Earth is Magical reading done, as well as this more simple reading at the new moon period for December 2021. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out now, and in relation to the winter solstice 1 year later, 1 year after the great conjunction, or what seems to me to be indicative of this great shift on our planet. And I during my busy week last week, during Cyber Monday, I was getting a lot of downloads again while I was busy working in 3D. And one of them was about the Cathars. Okay, so the Cathars and the Basque region of the world. And, this has to do, these connections that I get at certain times, and also when I was working on my website, Science, Spirituality, Universe, City.com, I was getting a lot of encouragement and energy in relation to Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene, Mary of Magdalene, or Magdalene, was Jesus, or Sananda was his higher self. Jesus or Sananda it was Mary was his twin flame. Okay. So there was a lot of persecution happening during Jesus' time, obviously, and Jesus was persecuted. And then this pattern keeps playing out war by war. And that's pretty much what I've been guided to dissect and get to, because that's the kind of energy that I speak about that was coming at me. But it just so happens that I was being prepared by the higher power to deal with it. And like I said in another video recently, I think I've done a pretty good job. It's been difficult. First of all, I didn't even know that I would be delving into these rich and deep parts of history, but also very painful parts of history that have either gone ignored or have been glossed over. And, as I've been talking about identity theft, a lot of people are suffering that, and a lot of people that are putting forth content on YouTube that is solid and that is meaningful, they're getting either plagiarized or they're getting, identity thieved for their information. So I was experiencing that kind of treatment in my profession, science, long before I realized the dark aspects or the dark influence behind it, which goes back to Jesus' time as well, but even farther back. And that's why I bring in a lot of different types of books that I was guided to read at certain specific times, especially at and after 9/11, or around that time period. So I just wanted to bring that in because it's going to be interesting to see what cards come out. Right now, it's just going to be a simple reading. I think what I'm going to do is, literally, I just pulled decks out tonight for the next Earth is Magical reading, and I was thinking, oh, I'll grab my 2 moon decks, moon oracles, and we'll see what happens. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put an expectation on how many cards come out of either deck. This will be the Moonology deck that I'm working with, and that one's by Yasmin Boland, and the artwork is by Nyx Rowan. And the other deck I'll pull from is the Moon Oracle. Let the phases of the moon guide your life. And I just wanted to show this. This is the inside of the Moonology Oracle card. I love it when they put little sayings inside. Kyle Gray does that too. And in his Angels and Ancestors deck, there's some really nice quotation inside the actual cover, the hard cover. So this says, let the moon be your guide. And this says, let the phases of the moon guide your life. And that's what I've been talking about, how important the moon is and what's going on our moon. And, we know that NASA traveled there in the 60s and had a great focus on the moon with the Apollo mission and, one small step for mankind. I can't even remember what it says what John, I think it was John Glenn said, but anyway, I did work for NASA for 8 years, and I worked on a program called Mission to Planet Earth, and so I was very inspired being there during the 90s, and of course had no idea that 9/11 would transpire either. But what I'm getting at is things have shifted so radically on our planet, and the impetus to do right by our Earth and to be concerned about the planetary health of Earth and our own health seems to have fallen on deaf ears. And, with this virus and all the manipulation with science that I've experienced, I couldn't have foreseen that when I was even going to college back in the 90s and working at NASA. But I do remember talking to a nurse back then who actually grabbed my attention, and I was just remembering this the other day, and she was talking about her concern about this very thing, about a virus that could be released into our atmosphere. So she was likely ahead of her time. I can't think of her name right now. She's a lady with blonde hair, and I would recognize her if I saw her again. But she came into the Mission to Planet Earth office more than once and was very genuinely concerned. And I think that's what's troubling to me too, is those of us who are genuinely concerned have been largely ignored or in other cases silenced or nearly silenced to death. And I do want to bring up the point. See, my throat chakra's getting, having problems. So that's Spirit's way of saying, it is, there's an issue of being silenced on our planet that is very important, but that we need to have positive thoughts and to create positive results moving forward. This is the Archangel Michael card that I carry with me and look at regularly. Okay, and this is the card deck that I mentioned in in the last reading for the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, where I talk a lot about war again, and Venusian energy, which is correlated back to Jesus as well. But this is the first oracle deck that I was guided to get when I was being targeted as a scientist. But what I want to say, and I was targeted out in California, but also elsewhere in the world, including overseas, in covert ways that I had to figure out. But what I want to bring the attention to is the fact the health of our planet is critical right now. And yes, there's more people that are helping shift the positive vibe on our planet, but we still need to not overlook what is happening to science and to scientists and to the scientific method and all these things that are going to take time to repair because they have been grossly manipulated. Okay, and you can look up the dead scientist list, and I'm not trying to be morbid about this. It's real and it has happened. A lot of scientists have gone missing and have been murdered, and so we've got to get back to reality. Okay, a war, as I've posted in other postings, is not reality. It's fantasy. It's myth. And when you start researching the war mens rea or mental state, and you see it up close and personal, as I have, I mean, there's just no other way to describe it. It's straight up evil. Okay, and a lot of people go into it thinking they're gonna protect their country and all that, and I'm just breaking the code on it because it's not about that at all. Okay, so with that put aside as an intro, I want to see what comes out as well, and I'm going to grab a drink of water because my throat chakra was affected by talking about those who have been silenced on our planet, and I was too for a while. And I actually lost my voice, and that used to happen to me like clockwork, every 3 years or so, back in the 80s and the 90s, and there were some other health issues that I was having and I got cancer, but I was supporting that machine, excuse me, through marriage. And, here you are, you know, here I am at least doing that, but I'm also going to college to study science and figure out why I was so motivated to learn. And I was, on a 12-year plan, a college plan. So I was very invested in it, despite all the daily demands and the health demands that I had as well. Going to college for me was cathartic, I guess you could say, but a lot of people don't even have the chance to go to college. So find ways to help people become inspired to want to learn and to become educated in ways that matter. And I know Spirit is guiding me to do these types of educational readings also for entertainment, but the messages are important, not just mine. But I don't want to gloss over, what's happening to our educational system as well as science. And a lot of it, unfortunately, has to do with the devils in the details that I talk about in the most recent reading using the Lost Tarot of Nostradamus. Now, Nostradamus was a medical professional 500 plus years ago, but he was also schooled in the art of divination, and that was a requirement to know astrology, to know how to divinate, and he did so with water and sticks, and he, I think it was like a form of scrying, but what was required of to become a medical practitioner back then is far different than what we're dealing with in quote unquote modern times, which have really become draconian. So we're kind of getting, a mix of new age, but also a lot of, influence from India. And I was even getting some influence through the, I'm trying to think how to say this without sounding corny, but even for a while I was enjoying reading some of the quotes that I would see on Chinese fortune cookies. China has been around as I mean, as a country. China is powerful, right? But even they've lost touch with balancing the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. Many countries are suffering this, and so is India. So why have we forgotten this? And why have we forgotten the importance of the moon and the cycles of life, okay? And the importance of not just the male, but the female on our planet, okay? And the importance of animals, okay, that procreate. Somewhere along the way, and it happened in a very short period of time, people have kind of lost their way with what matters or what should matter. And that has to do with supporting life, not being on life support mentally and emotionally and all that. A lot of this has to do with faith, and this gets back to religion and how religion and patriarchy is behind a lot of the problems and the hyper-masculinity that we see inflicted against the woman and against the child and against animals for a buck, for extra money, to make, to be like some of these gurus that are billionaires. That's not what our purpose is really to be, and that's not really evolving in a healthy manner on our planet, okay? Because money is printed, and is printed from trees. And now we've got electronic currency, and so then we become more automated and robotic. So we have to get back to nature and what matters, okay? And what matters is coming back to nature and getting in sync with the rhythms of life, the cycles of life. So that's why Spirit has guided me to recognize the importance of the moon and the cycles of the moon as much as I would have as a scientist noticing, other types of patterns that I used to investigate for a living. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead, and we're at 21 minutes, so that's a pretty good intro. And want to sage. I did sage before I turned the camera on, but I want to clear the air. Some of that information is a little depressing and surprising, but it has to be said, and it has to be restated and correlated in ways that people will understand, so that when they listen, they can start to figure out the meaning of life beyond the dollar and beyond Cyber Monday and, using the internet to just buy. Okay. I think the internet, or back in the 70s and the 80s, before the internet was even available to the general public, obviously, some corporations were involved in developing it, and it was primarily used, if I recall right. I remember sitting at a meeting at a NASA library at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center back in the early 90s. I think I was an admin assistant back then at that time when I did so, but I got the chance to do some kind of cool things and attend some interesting meetings. And one of them was about the guy who was studying not the primate. Wasn't really technically a primate, but she was a Neanderthal, I believe. Her name was, or they named her Lucy, and I think his name was David Johansen. But I was able to go sit in the auditorium and listen to him speak about his discovery of Lucy. And I think she was only like 3 feet tall, but they found her remains and were studying her as one of the earlier beings before humans evolved. So what I'm getting at here is we can't slip backward and de-evolve, because that's how other civilizations have fallen, and that's why I talk about Atlantis and Lemuria as well, because people have said those are just fiction. They're fictitious civilizations, but there is some evidence for their existence, and there's also evidence for their correlation between Hawaii and Atlantis and Hermes, which I've posted about recently using the Hermetic Tarot. So Diana Cooper has made that correlation through her Ascension deck, accelerating your journey to the light. So what I'm getting at here, you can see overall, is this issue of evolution, or or not evolving, because technology is being used and controlled in ways that are detrimental to us rather than educational. So when I was at NASA, I was involved in some pretty cool educational programs, and I'll try to post those links. But they have also changed a bit since I left in the 90s. But when I was there, I developed a website for soil science education, and that's how I learned. I taught myself essentially HTML code before they even had, graphical user interfaces that made it easier to just click and select buttons to make your website look good. So I got a book called HTML for Dummies back then, and I took one class that my boss, my soil science friend and boss, suggested that I take. And I did that while I was going to college and working full-time there in the soil science office as a co-manager. And then, I was just a very busy person, but I still had time to do things. And I was taking chemistry classes then, which were really tough. So, sometimes we have to stick ourselves out there and do the tough things to get ourselves and our world back on track. And I'm thinking that is a very resonant message at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius that involves the energy of Jupiter. And Jupiter is a benefic planet, but you also have to deal with Saturn's lessons, right? Before you get the blessings from Jupiter. Now, NASA doesn't teach any of this, and I would have probably been laughed out of my office if I would have sat down to try to type this stuff back then. But what I was typing was soil science education and, growing gardens and learning about the importance of soils that are so important to developing civilization, right? And even housing, a mud structure housing that was built before we even had modern technology to build big buildings or, houses that are structurally sound and can withstand a lot of, the elements over long periods of time. Okay, so evolution seems to be the key word here. But let's see what comes out. I'm going to uncross my legs, make sure that the energy flow is good. Okay, Spirit. I've called in Archangel Michael because Archangel Michael's been with me to help me through these really difficult periods and continue on my evolutionary path to do what it is that I need to do for me as an individual, but also for the collective greater good of humanity. And that's what I've learned over time, how I've been steered, and also steered away from that which I speak about in detail in the full moon lunar eclipse reading that I just posted using the Tarot of Nostradamus deck, and also in the Shoot to Thrill Pick a Deck reading that I've correlated with it. Okay, so let's see. Hecate's out, so we're dealing with goddess energy. So there's a goddess showing up here, Hecate, and there's another goddess. Oh, we have three goddesses here. Okay, so there's very strong goddess energy, which correlates with the feminine moon energy. And then we have Freya, And we also have Artemis. Okay, so you might resonate with one of these three. I probably should have pulled out my stands, but like I said, this is kind of impromptu. And I'm going to show you the bottom of the deck too. Hecate, Freya, and Artemis. And I just want to plug the book, The Alphabet versus the Goddess, because that's another one that I was thinking about when I was talking about this, the demise of our planet and the, difficult situations a lot of us have found ourselves in, surprisingly so, including me. And I was reading the Alphabet versus the Goddess. I can't remember what year I bought that, but it was around, it may have been around the time I was in law school and working full time in the water industry out in California. But I encourage you to get that book. It's written by a brain surgeon named Leonard Schlein, and he was noticing certain problematic things that stuck with him when he was traveling, and that's the kind of situation I found myself in as I traveled across terra firma, both to support the U.S. military and then also involving family post 9/11. So, and then also for enjoyment, recreating and taking a break in Hawaii was a big thing for me. So the book by Robert Moss talks about the importance of travel and that things like to happen together and things like to happen when you're moving. Okay. So you can get that book. It's pretty entertaining as well. Yeah, this is interesting. The Black Moon card. I think that showed itself when I was just like, sometimes I'll just go like this and look at the deck and see, yeah, this card too. The Knight, oops, excuse me, was one that I saw in the pre-shuffle. Number 8, the Knight. And I also saw that with the Black Moon card, which is also a number 8. So this is interesting. So we're dealing with goddesses and night energy, Knight. This is the air element and dormant. Things are dormant, but 8 involves abundance and is going to take time, as we go into the winter months where things do die back. So it's a good time to get rest and be silent and figure out the next steps on your life path. That's what I'm downloading, and that also correlates to a pick a deck reading that I did recently. It's elemental, so you can look at that, and I think it is pile number 3, which is snow and silentia, meaning silence. So there's a dormancy period that we're going to be experiencing as we head into this winter solstice 2021. But there are 3 goddesses here. So in the extended, I'll read about them out of this book. But I'm going to see if I can find some quick information. For Artemis, it says, and this is the Artemis card. Okay. And it says on the cover here, white goddess, representative of Aries energy, which is fire. And the key phrase associated with her energy influence is play it cool if possible. Okay, and the card meaning is this goddess warns that your own impetuosity Impetus or impetuosity and cleverness can destroy the very things that you desire. Although there is a temptation to be competitive, you should try not to engage in rash action and saber-rattling behavior. Instead, this card urges a cool, more sophisticated approach to the matter in question. As a white goddess, Artemis demands a creative solution to the question. The nature of fire in Aries is naturally hot-blooded and impatient, and Aries, as I've said in more recent videos, is at the beginning of the zodiac signs and is in the infancy stage, so not mature in thought or action. Care must be taken not to stumble. If this card is selected, April will be a significant month with regard to the question. So whatever your question or situation is, if this is the card that resonates with you, you'll want to likely go into a dormant status and think before you act, because Aries is a warring energy, warrior energy. Okay, so revision is necessary, and that revision involves dormancy until April. And let me see if I can find Freya. There's Hecate. Let's see if I can find Freya. I'll go backward here. Yeah, but do you get the book, The Alphabet versus the Goddess by Leonard Shlain? Because this goddess energy is very strong here. I mean, I didn't get any other cards but goddess cards. So we're dealing with goddess energy at this 1 year into this great shift. Also for the full moon lunar eclipse reading for Taurus, which is representative of Earth and Pentacles in the tarot. The prophetess is the number 1 position, the number 1 card. So there's a lot of feminine influence at the full moon and at this new moon. Full moon Taurus, new moon Sag. Okay, so for some reason I am not finding Freya. The moon goddesses. I'm going to read this real quick. I am she that is the natural mother of all things, mistress and governess of all the elements, the initial progeny of worlds, chief of the powers divine, queen of all that are in hell, the principal of them that dwell in heaven, manifested alone, and under one form of all the gods and goddesses. At my will, the planets of the sky, the wholesome winds of the sea, and the lamentable silences of hell be disposed. My name, my divinity, is adored throughout the world, in divers manners, in variable customs, and by many names. The golden ass, Lucius Apuleius, translated by William Adlington in 1566. So that was, I think, around the time of Nostradamus as well, but that's what was written in The Golden Ass by Lucius Apuleius and translated in the 1500s, the 16th century, by William Adlington. So, we're talking about a lot of years and a lot of time that has passed. If you think about the time that has passed in your life, it's time to think about history that goes back, way back in time. And that's how I've been challenged as a scientist to think, and to also problem solve and troubleshoot what is plaguing conditions on Earth and, for society. So this is Freya right here. Let me see if I can pick her up here and show you. So Freya, Black Goddess, Aquarius energy, air. And we are in the age of Aquarius, so this is present. If you look at this as cards 1, 2, and 3, you could also look at it as past, present, and future energy. So usually in a 3-card pull, that's a good way to approach the appearance of the cards as they come out of a deck. But nevertheless, I'm just encouraging you to learn about goddesses and goddess energy. This says here at the bottom, in relation to Freya, the key phrase, you will have to kiss a few frogs to find your prince. Okay, so play it cool and kiss a few more frogs. Spirit has a sense of humor. And I did talk about the twin flame journey, and that seems to be part and parcel of dealing with the twin flame journey as well. There's a lot of frogs. Okay, the card meaning. Just as this goddess Freya was prepared to sell herself to get what she wanted, so will you if you draw this card. Freya can also symbolize having to lower your standards in order to achieve the desired result. Freya was a materialistic goddess, which has to do with pentacles, right? Money, tangibles, and the pleasure she gained from these objects of her desire that far outweighed what she had to do in order to obtain them. Freya is the last of the black goddesses, and in her death and rebirth role, seeks to overthrow outmoded ideas in favor of innovative thinking. So that's the Aquarian energy, the innovator. The lateral thinking of air in the eccentric sign of Aquarius indicates the use of inventiveness and of wit to achieve the desired outcome. If the Freya card is selected, then February will be an important month with regard to the question. So we have for Artemis, April, if that resonates with you, if she does, and Freya, dealing with February, which is around Valentine's Day in the United States of America. So you might have to kiss a few more frogs until then, and that might be part of the revision because things are going dormant. It's interesting too with this black moon air influence, because Freya is also air energy, right? And I just got done talking about the twin flame influence, and I was going through my cards, like I said, to pull for the Earth is Magical reading, the next one, for fall 2021 before the winter solstice hits. But I pulled out my Romance Angels deck. I haven't used that in a while, and I started just going through it, and that same type of message was coming out. Certain things are affecting one's love life, and there's a separation on the horizon. So if you're watching this and you know that you're a twin flame or part of a twin flame collective and journey, then more than likely you're not going to get the twin flame result that others are who are ready. Okay, just some people don't want the twin flame experience. It's very difficult and it takes a lot of maturation to get to that level. So that's why I was getting downloads too, like I said, about in the intro. So you can listen to that because I was mentioning the Basque region and the Cathars and the Inquisitions. I can't think of the name of the actual crusade. Starts with an A. But yeah, there's been a number of crusades and Islamic oppression of Christians over, a long period of time, and that has resurfaced in America under the guise of, national security and 9/11. So we can see how old war patterns are being reinstituted to bring about fear and control, but we collectively are shifting beyond the fear and control model that has plagued many generations over hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay, so that's why divination is important. Um, and it's not something they teach in college, and I certainly didn't learn it. You can listen to some of my other videos, including the full moon lunar eclipse message, where I get into a little bit more about how I was guided to do oracle readings, and specifically involving this deck um, as a scientist who was targeted. So, scientists back in Galileo's time, like Galileo was imprisoned until his death. He was, I believe, on house arrest until he passed away for his discoveries as a scientist. And like I said, a lot of scientists over the past 20 years since 9/11 have been killed. So these aren't just coincidences. And we need to really get a handle on, our humanity and what it means to us collectively to evolve, and what we're paying into systemically, governmentally, that is counterproductive and counter-evolutionary. So this is Hecate, okay, and she, I think, came out, she came out one of my readings, I believe, in October. So let's see what Hecate means here. It's interesting, I just passed this night. So again, I was talking about the Cathars and the Basque region, but also this has to do with the Knights Templar in the southern part of France. And, Mary Magdalene, or Mary of Magdalene, was reportedly living in the south of France before she passed away, and that's kind of the mystique that was covered in the Da Vinci Code movie series. So, it's interesting that I was getting these quick downloads about the Cathars and the Basque region. So I did a little search yesterday online. I'm like, why am I being prompted about this, right? And I started looking at maps to kind of map out, what spirit was trying to guide me to think about. And on my day off, and that is the same area as the Languedoc region, or the I'm trying to think of the the area that has been popularized by the Da Vinci Code movie. For some reason, it just slipped my mind. But it's in the Languedoc region in southern France. So you might want to watch the Da Vinci Code. And you can also learn more about, I'm trying to remember, let me see if I can find what I'm getting at too is Mary Magdalene was suppressed, right? And she was suppressed along with Jesus for her following Jesus' teachings and also being a disciple herself. The patriarchs of that time did not want her receiving any credit or notoriety or acknowledgement for her intelligence and her contributions as, teaching what Jesus was teaching and doing a pretty good job about it, right? I encourage you to find this. I found this at the dollar store just one day last year in 2020. And it's Unlocking Da Vinci's Code, Mystery or Conspiracy. Watch it because it's important. You'll learn about the credit card system. The Knights Templar also use tarot. And that's what I was getting at. The Freemasons and the Illuminist Freemasons and the Jesuits and the Knights Templar and the Knights of Malta and the Knights Hospitalier, I think is how you say it. There's this whole steeped history back to Jesus' time, but it also includes the Languedoc region and Mary Magdalene's journey as, Jesus' counterpart. And Jesus is also known as Sananda. Okay? So I did talk a little bit about Jesus and Mary Magdalene on my website, ScienceSpiritualityUniversity.com, but also Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, and also Mother Mary. And so, the Beatles sang about Mother Mary back in the 60s, right? A lot of the same type of energy and correlation back to Egyptian time is coming through art and music. And it did in the 80s, even when you look at some of the album covers and some of the songs that I've posted in relation to some of my readings. There's reasons that it's resonating really strongly with me, and the closer I look at it, I have to do a double take too, because I'm like, why am I being so inspired by, Dio's music right now, or Journey's music, or different types of 70s music during the Vietnam War era, and a lot of it has to do with repeating habitual war and inquisition and suppression and enslavement, like back in the Egyptian times, and the Civil War period. So a lot of time has passed, but we're also, these old timelines are like collapsing together as we parse through the old ways and what doesn't serve us to prepare us to live in this new earth where it's going to be, better for everybody and not just a select few percent. Okay? So with that, Hecate is the next one. And then I'll pull some Moonology cards and go to sleep. Because I have a 3D job. And I have to get up really early. Okay. Hecate, Black Goddess, Capricorn. Okay, that's December into January, right? So we're coming up on the Capricorn energy. Out of Sag into Capricorn. Black Goddess, Capricorn, Earth. Key phrase, live in the present. The card meaning, Hecate has the power to look in 3 directions at the same time. When this card is drawn, it suggests that something is locking you into the past, making it difficult to enjoy the present fully and to prepare positively to move on into the future, which is what I just said about the new earth. The past must be reviewed, relived, and then put away for good with the symbolic washing away of its influences. Whatever is discovered as a result will remain hidden to everyone except yourself. Hecate tells you that you cannot change the past. Rather, you must live in and do what you can in the present, in the now, right? And the future will then look after itself. A death and rebirth Black Goddess, Hecate demands that you put your priorities in order. And that's what I said even with Artemis's plan, because right now this bottom of the deck card is Dormancy, right? So if you resonate with Hecate, you too can prepare for the future by going within during this winter, like kind of hibernate like a bear and prepare for the spring. So it was April for Artemis and February for Freya, which is pretty easy. F and A, February and April, Freya and Artemis. So let's see what else it says from Hecate. Hecate tells you you cannot change the past. Rather, you must live in and do what you can in the present. The future will then look after itself. A death and rebirth Black Goddess, Hecate demands that you put your priorities in order. The systematic nature of Earth in the authoritarian sign of Capricorn, which is a cardinal sign, and so is Libra. We have Freya here that is Aquarius energy, air energy. So Capricorn seeks to establish order where there is confusion, and there's a whole lot of confusion on the planet. And there's a whole lot of confusion because there's a whole lot of illusion, and that centers about war. If the goddess card Hecate is selected, which it did come out, then January will be an important month with regard to the question, whatever question that you may have, if this Hecate goddess resonates with you. So we have 2 black goddesses here, and we have 1 white goddess. So there's black and white. Definitely look at my It's Elemental reading pile number 1 as well as number 3. And you can also learn quite a bit about pile number 2 in relation to the charm that correlates with pile number 2 that happens to be the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of Fortune number 10 card and the Death card and the Devil card and the Tower card are all coming out very strongly in multiple readings that I've watched today. Not just my own energy checks, but also others' readings. I think Baba Jolie is one, and and Moonlight Tarot, I believe she's a British tarot reader. She does a really fine job. So, and there were others too that, you know, certain cards are coming out, but it's not coincidence because this is the energy in the air. So with Freya, this one is coming through in relation to a romantic relationship and the need to kiss a few more frogs before your prince shows up, right? And so I was correlating that to the twin flame journey, but also to Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And so it was interesting that, you know, I was getting those downloads last week about the Basque region and the Cathars and, you know, the south of France, which is where Jesus, twin flame, Mary Magdalene went and eventually, you know, lived out the rest of her life there. Rennes-le-Château, I think is the exact area. Rennes-le-Château, and you can read the book by Henry Lincoln to learn more about that region and the mystery surrounding Mary Magdalene. Yeah, right behind the Black Moon Dormant card is the Last Quarter card and the Waning Earth Moon Fall. So we're in this fall period now, moving into a dormant period as nature prepares for the cold, nature's creatures. So if you can help them out by putting out bird feed, bird seed, and, you know, helping the animals through the winter in your area, in your neck of the woods, that would be great. Okay, because winter is hard on everybody. Okay, this has to do with principles. So perhaps you can meditate on your principles and standards as you go through this dormant period and make revisions in your life that are necessary to help you evolve. And behind principles and revision is choice. And of course we know it's a choice that we make. Okay, and that's a leaves card, but we can make our choices as the Moon Oracle book said, January, February, and April. We can start, you know, making some movement after December. But it takes revision, a review of principles in order to make the choices that we need. And precipice is right after choice. Okay? So I'm just going to ask Spirit for a few Moonology cards. And I'll post those in the extended. Oh, I have a little puppy. Okay, I'll come back. I will come back and do it. Okay, so I'm going to do this really quick. And in the extended, I'll talk in more detail. Just a minute, baby. Just a minute. Sit down. Sit down. Good boy. Just let me pull. He gets excited when his daddy comes home. I'll just shuffle a little bit more, see if we get any hoppers, and if not, I'll pull up. There we go. Bottom of the deck, it's time to release negativity. Full moon in Scorpio, which we just came through. And then we have it's time to take action. So that's at the new moon in Aries, right? So we'll match that. Luck is on your side. The new moon in Sagittarius, which is the energy we're dealing with now at the eclipse. And the answers you need are coming. This card also came through in a recent post that I did. This correlates to the full moon in Gemini. And we have a Gemini, is it the full moon in Gemini? Yeah, we have a full moon in Gemini coming up in December. Okay, so these are important cards. But action will not be taken until the spring, which is what Aries represents. So that's pretty on point. So with that, those are the cards. This is the energy message for the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And overall, it's important that you go within during the dormancy of winter and release negativity. That's a very strong message, okay? And also get a hold of the book and start reading the alphabet versus the goddess. And I think that you will find some really compelling information there in relation to this shift on Earth to balance the yin and the yang, the masculine, feminine, the distorted masculine and the distorted feminine, and the move toward those who have achieved the twin flame status or twin flame journey are the chosen ones who are going to help us move forward in this new earth under divine feminine and divine masculine energy. Namaste.